So we are going to talk about reinforcement theory. So next 4 slides, or the 4 slides covered in this recording, is on reinforcement theory. So when we're dealing with motivation, we are looking at people's behaviors and we are wondering, why are they behaving the way they do? So reinforcement theory gives us one way to explain that. And so this theory, reinforcement theory, based on the work of Pavlov and Skinner, so Ivan Pavlov and B.F. Skinner, tells us that depending on what happens after you do something, will either make you do more of that or will make you do less of that. So the consequences, the outcomes following actions will either increase or decrease the behaviors. And by consequences or outcomes, we typically look at rewards, punishments, being ignored, those types of things. And so they will actually make you more excited to do what you just did, and you'll do more of it, or it will just make you feel, don't want to do that, didn't get a good outcome from it, so you'll stop doing it. So that's the basic idea behind reinforcement theory. So Pavlov did some work on what's called behavioral conditioning, and Skinner did work on operant conditioning. We are not going to detail those theories, but we should know those two names, and we should know those two approaches to reinforcement theory. But other than that, what we need to know is the actual methods of reinforcement, which are on the next slide, and then the reinforcement schedules, which is coming on the next 2 slides. So there are 4 reinforcement methods, and they are called, I'm right here right now, right? So 4 reinforcement methods. We have positive reinforcement, we have negative reinforcement, we have something called extinction, and then we have punishment. So some of those terms are known to you and others are maybe a little bit new. And then we also have the reinforcement schedules, the timing of the consequences. So here are the 4 types of reinforcement methods. These are the reinforcement methods: punishment, extinction, negative reinforcement, and positive reinforcement. So punishment is when you add something. You add something to the behavior. So you have a behavior occurring, and then you add something that is negative, and that should reduce the behavior. So in our example here, the dog is barking or he's biting or whatever he's doing. You walk over to the dog, you slap the dog on the nose. Doesn't seem like a very nice thing to do, but you slap the dog on the nose, and that's a punishment. You're adding a negative behavior, right? So you're adding a negative behavior, you're adding the punishment, and so hopefully the behavior should decrease. So punishment is when we add something and we're looking for decrease in behavior. Extinction, on the other hand, is we're not adding a behavior here. So the consequence is basically nothing. The consequence is ignoring. So again, say that you have the dog barking. The dog is barking, 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 and then you ignore the dog. It's barking to get through the door, whatever, you're ignoring it. Eventually, it would learn that nothing happens. They bark, 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 nothing happens, and they will stop barking. Kind of like learned helplessness a little bit. So here we're actually ignoring, not paying attention, not adding any consequence, just ignoring, and we call that extinction. Again, looking for bad behavior to decrease. Then the negative and positive reinforcement both deals with good behaviors that we want to increase. So punishment and extinctions are used for bad behaviors that we want to decrease. Negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement deals with good behavior that we want to increase. So for the negative reinforcement is removing something that previously was a negative thing for the person or the dog in this example. So you are removing a negative consequence after good behavior is established. So in this example, the puppy is running around and you have been training the puppy to not run away from you when the puppy is not on the leash anymore. So here you're removing the negative consequence, which is the leash, after the puppy shows that he or she is not running away. So you see the good behavior and you are rewarding the good behavior when you're taking away something that they don't like. So in an office setting, maybe you have an employee that has to be micromanaged because they're not doing their job. And you tell them, hey, listen, you got 2 weeks, you do this report, and I'm going to stop checking in on you constantly, because they get annoyed when you stop by their office cubicle like every 3 minutes, right? So they actually do the report, they do it on time, it's a good quality report, and now you're removing the negative consequence, which is checking in on them consequently, you know what I'm saying, constantly, right? So that is negative reinforcement. You remove the negative consequence after the good behavior is established. Positive reinforcement is the rewards. So this one is pretty straightforward for us. We know what those are. So we're adding a reward after some good behavior is accomplished. This is what they do at school with my boys, which drives me crazy. They give them lollipops when they do their homework, which in my mind shouldn't be happening. But anyways, I have no control. So positive reinforcement, you add a reward following good behavior. So when your roommate takes out the trash, you praise the roommate. And hopefully, the more praise, sincere praise, acknowledgement, thankfulness will make them take out the trash more often. Good stuff. All right, 2 slides of reinforcement schedules. So there's 4 reinforcement schedules. We have on this slide something called fixed interval and variable ratio. And then the next slide deals with continuous schedules and fixed ratio schedules. So we have 2 fixed schedules. We have fixed interval and fixed ratio. And then we have continuous and variable. All right. So the fixed interval schedule deals with timing. After a specific period of time, you receive a reward. So this is the Christmas bonus. Every year at Christmas, you get a bonus. That's on a fixed interval, fixed timing, and you get the reward. You get the turkey for Thanksgiving. Fixed interval schedules, there's 12 months between each of the rewards that you get. Variable ratio means we have no idea. It's just random. It's not fixed. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's like a slot machine. Or it's like the boss that walks the office every day, and maybe on the 9th time he walks by or she walks by, she says, great job, right? Or on the 13th time, or never, or maybe on the 200th time. You just never know when it's going to come. We call it variable ratio. Continuous schedule means every time it happens. Every single time you see the positive behavior, you reward it. So you get a sticker every time you turn in your homework. You get a good job from your boss every time you come to the meeting and you share with your colleagues the updates on the project. Good job every time. Continuous schedule. Fixed ratio means that we are providing a reward every so many times. So you go to the coffee shop on campus, you have their little punch card. You buy 9 coffees and the 10th coffee is free. That's a fixed ratio. So see the differences here between the fixed ratio and what we had on the other slide, which is the fixed interval. So the fixed interval deals with time. So for instance, 12 months before you get that bonus, okay? Fixed interval deals with time. Fixed ratio deals with number of times. So you have to do something 9 times, not months, but times. Okay? So that's the big difference between those two. As I'm writing this with my mouse pad because I don't have an actual mouse on this computer. Okay, that's going to wrap it for reinforcement schedules. Have a great day. Thanks.